the 8th of November. Dear Margaret, I'm going to put a date at the top of this the way I promised you I would. And I have written one, you can see it there, the 8th of November. But I want to tell you plainly, before we go a step further, that I am no longer at all sure it is the 8th, or November, or that the number means what it used to mean, and that I have decided, this week, to stop minding. I will keep writing them for you. You asked me to, and I will. But I have come to think of the date at the top of my letters the way I have come to think of the bell on the church tower that does not ring. A thing we keep the shape of out of love and habit after the use has gone out of it. So, the 8th of November, near enough, by a clock I am no longer keeping. And the reason I have stopped minding, the reason I can write you that and feel only warm about it, is the thing I have to tell you, which is the best thing that has happened to me since I came, and the simplest. And I have been saving it the way you save the last good bite on the plate. It snowed, Margaret. The first snow came. It came in the night. Of course it did. Everything comes here in the night. The fog came in the night, and the frost came in the night, and now the snow. As though the village does its real living while I sleep, and only shows me the finished thing in the morning. I went to bed with the valley hard and black and starless. A wind got up somewhere past midnight that I half heard and turned over away from, and I woke. Late, I think, though you will understand by now that I cannot swear to it. I woke into a light I did not recognize. That is the thing about the first snow that I had forgotten, that no one ever puts into the word snow. The light. Before I had opened my eyes, I knew something had changed, because the light coming through the curtain was wrong. Not the grey of a foggy morning, and not the thin gold of a clear one, but a soft, even brightness with no source in it. A light that seemed to come up from below as much as down from above, and I lay there a moment in the warm with my eyes shut, trying to name it, and could not, and got up and went to the window the way a child does, with my heart going faster than a grown man's heart has any business going over the weather. And the valley was gone. That is the only way I can say it to you. The valley I have spent these months learning, the cobbled square, the green, the dipping lane, the well-roofed, the huddle of dark, wet rooftops, the whole brown and grey of it that I could by now draw you with my eyes closed. It was simply gone, taken in the night, and in its place was this, a white so complete and so soft that for a moment my eye could find nothing to hold to, no edge, no line, the snow lying deep and unbroken over every roof and sill and step and stone, rounding all the hard corners of the place into something gentler than itself. The square one smooth white field, the green a white field, the rooftops white slopes with only here and there a black line of eave showing through, and over all of it, still coming down, the snow itself. Not the hurrying snow of a storm, but great, slow, feathered flakes drifting down out of a low, pearl-coloured sky, as though they had all the time in the world, which here, I have come to learn, they do. I stood at that window a long time, Margaret. Longer than I can account for. I did not light the lamp, or dress, or call down for anything. I stood in my nightshirt, with my feet going cold on the boards, and I watched it come down. And I will tell you, because I tell you everything now, I have given up keeping the small shames back from you. I cried a little. Not from sadness. I want to be clear with you that it was not from sadness, because I know that when I write you that I wept at a window, you will reach for your shawl and your worry both, and you must not. It was the other thing. The thing that does not have a good name. The thing that comes up in a person when something is simply more beautiful than he was prepared for, and finds him with his defences down first thing in the morning before he has got his daytime face on. I have not been undefended like that in front of a thing of beauty since I was a boy. The North has been taking my hard edges off me one at a time since I came. I have felt it happening and told you about it as it went. And I think the first snow took the last of them, or near, because there was nothing in me at that window but the snow and the gladness. No clerk, no count, no part of me standing back to assess it. Just a man at a window in the falling white, glad past speaking. And you, of course, because I cannot see a thing like that and not turn at once to find you, to say, "Look, Margaret, look." And you were not at my shoulder to look. And that is the only grief that was in it. And even that grief was a soft one, snow-coloured. Nothing like the hard homesickness of the early days. I dressed at last and went down, and the inn was warm and full of the smell of the fire and of something baking. And Mrs. Pell was at the range, and I came in rubbing my hands and full of the news as though I had discovered it, as though snow were a thing that had never fallen on Hollowmere before, and I had brought word of it down the stairs. And she looked up at me with that flat, kind look she has, the look that has more under it than it shows, and she said, "Aye, it's come then," in exactly the voice she would have used to tell me the kettle had boiled, and went back to her work. And I understood that I was, once again, the only person in the village to whom the morning was a marvel. I have stopped being embarrassed by that. I have decided it is one of the few advantages I have over these people, who have lived so long inside the wonders of this place that they cannot see them anymore. That I can still see them. That I come down the stairs lit up about the snow like a boy, and that this is not a thing to be cured of, but a thing to be guarded. You taught me that, in a way, long before I came here with your garden, that the person who keeps the capacity to be amazed by an ordinary marvel is richer than the one who has grown used to it. I am rich that way still. I mean to stay rich. But here is the first strange thing, Margaret, and it crept up on me slowly across the morning, the way the strange things here always do, not with a shock, but with a small, accumulating wrongness that I turned over and over until it came clear. I expected the village to fight the snow. That is what a village does, is it not? What any place does. Snow falls, and the people come out with their shovels and their brooms and their grumbling, and they clear the paths, and they salt the steps, and they curse the cold and dig themselves a way through it, because snow is an obstacle, an enemy of the day's business, a thing to be got out of the way so that life can go on. I have lived in such places all my life. I know the sound of a winter morning at home, the scrape of shovels, the chip of ice off the steps, the whole street at war with the weather before the sun is up. I came down expecting that sound, or the start of it, and it was not there. There was no scraping. There were no shovels. I went out after my breakfast, wrapped to the eyes because I at least am still a creature of the south in my bones, and the cold here is a serious thing. I went out into the square, and the snow lay over all of it, deep and smooth, and entirely, completely unbroken. Not a path cut through it anywhere, not a step cleared. The whole village simply sitting in the snow up to its knees, and not lifting a finger against it. A few people were about, moving slowly through the deep of it where they had to, lifting their feet high, leaving the only marks on all that white. But no one was clearing anything. No one was at war with it. They moved through the snow the way you move through deep water at the seaside, with a kind of accepting effort, as though the snow had every right to be there, and the burden of going through it was simply the price of the day, fairly charged. And the children were not being kept in out of it, nor set to shovel it. The children were in it to the waist, silent and serious and entirely happy, doing the grave, important work that children do in snow. I asked Reed about it. Of course I did. He was at the edge of the square with his pale, steady eyes, looking out over the white with an expression I can only call contentment. And I went and stood by him. We are easy enough now that I can do that, stand by him without a reason, which is its own small treasure. And I said something about the village not clearing the paths. Half a question, the way I have learned to ask things here, sideways, so that a man can answer or not as he likes. And he was quiet a while, watching the snow, and then he said, "We let the first snow stay." Just that. And then, because I think he has come to enjoy a little the work of explaining his world to the one man who needs it explained, he went on, "You don't fight the first one. It's a comfort, the deep quiet of it. The whole place goes soft and slow, and there's no getting anywhere fast. And that's the point of it. That's the gift. The work can wait. It always could. The snow just makes it plain. We let it lie, and we let it stay, and it stays as long as we've the want of it. And when we're done with the quiet, we let it go." And he turned and looked at me, with the ghost of a smile in the pale eyes, and said, "You'll have noticed by now we let a good many things stay that other places would hurry off." I have been turning that over ever since, the way I turn everything here, and I will give you where I have got to with it, though I will tell you in advance that this one has not frightened me the way the lane frightened me, or the dates. This one has only deepened the quiet gladness, and I have decided to let it. Here is the thing I have watched happen, plainly, with my own eyes, across these days since it fell. The snow has not gone. I do not mean only that it has been cold enough to keep it, though it has been cold. I mean that the snow has not behaved the way snow behaves. At home, you know how it goes. The first snow is a glory for a morning and a misery by afternoon, going grey and slumped at the edges, melting off the south-facing slopes by noon, turning the streets to brown slush within the day, so that the beauty of it is always half spoiled by the knowledge that it is already dying even as it falls. I have grieved 100 first snows at home, watched them go to ruin by tea time. This one has not gone to ruin. This one fell deep and soft and white, and it has stayed deep and soft and white, through days that have had sun in them, real sun, a low gold winter sun that came out 2 days after the fall and lay across the whole white valley and should, by every law I have ever known, have set the eaves dripping and the south slopes melting and the whole thing sliding towards slush. And nothing dripped. The sun lay on the snow, and the snow took the sun and stayed exactly what it was, as though the warmth simply did not apply to it, as though the snow here were not the same substance as the snow at home, but some kinder cousin of it that had agreed, along with everything else in this valley, to keep its own counsel and ignore the rules the rest of the world goes by. I went and looked, Margaret. You know I did. I am still enough of a clerk that I could not simply accept a thing like that. I had to go and put my evidence together. I went to the south wall of the church, the place that should melt first, the sunniest stone in the village, and I stood there at what I judged to be midday with the sun full on it, and I watched the snow on the coping, and it did not melt. It sat there in the full of the sun, an inch from sun-warmed stone, white and dry and perfect, not a drop running, not an edge softening, holding its shape the way the fog holds its shape when it has decided to stay, the way the lane holds its length on a long day. And I understood, standing there, that the snow is the same as the rest of it. It is not a different strangeness, it is the same one wearing a winter coat. The village keeps its own time, and lets its lanes run long, and lets its first snow stay. These are not three marvels, but one single fact about this place that shows itself in 100 gentle ways, which is that Hollowmere has come loose from the rules the world agreed to, and lives instead by rules of its own keeping, and is not sorry. The snow stays because they have the want of it. When they are done with the quiet, Reed said, they will let it go. I do not doubt him anymore when he says a thing like that. I have stopped doing the arithmetic that says it cannot be so. And the strangest part, the part I have circled longest, the part I almost did not write because I cannot make it sound like anything but a man gone soft in the head, is that I am glad of it. I am so glad of it. A kept snow. A snow that will not melt until the village is ready to be done with it. An indefinite white quiet laid over everything with no end date on it. A wiser man, a more careful man, the man I was when I stepped off that coach, would feel the cold finger of warning in a thing like that, and he would be right to. But I stand in it, and I feel only the comfort. The snow has done to the village what the village has been slowly doing to me. Taken the hard edges off, rounded the corners, slowed everything to the pace of a man lifting his feet high through the deep of it, made the getting anywhere fast impossible and therefore, blessedly, beside the point. The whole valley has been given permission by the snow to do what it wanted to do anyway, which is to sit still and be quiet and warm and close. And I have been given the same permission, and I have taken it, and I am writing to you from inside the deepest, kindest quiet I have ever known, with no idea what day it is, and for once, not the smallest wish to find out. And the nights, Margaret. I must tell you about the nights, because if the snow has been the glory of the days, the nights since it fell have been something I will be trying to describe to you for the rest of my life, and never quite managing. You know the sitting up nights I've written you about, the long banked evenings in the public room where the village gathers and dozes and is quiet together by the fire. Take those and lay 3 feet of kept snow over the whole world outside, and you will have some idea of where I have been spending my evenings, and why I have not wanted them to end. Because the snow makes the going home hard. You cannot stroll back to a cold cottage through the deep of it in the black of a winter night. Not easily, not when the fire is here and the company is here. The village does not really go home at all now. It gathers at the inn as the dark comes down, in 2s and 3s, stamping the snow off in the doorway, pushing through Mrs. Pell's heavy curtain into the gold, and it stays. It stays the whole night, half of it, dozing in the chairs and on the settles, and no one minds, and no one hurries, because where would they hurry to, and what would they hurry for, with the snow keeping its kind indefinite watch over everything, and no clock anywhere telling anyone they ought to be elsewhere. The public room of an evening now is the warmest, fullest, most completely peopled place I have ever sat in. The fire is built up high against the cold. Every lamp is lit. The windows have gone full black with the night, and against the black, when you look, you can see the snow still turning down past the glass, lit gold for a moment by the window light before it falls away into the dark, and the contrast of it, the deep, warm, crowded gold of the room and the silent, falling white just the other side of the cold glass, is a thing I could look at forever, and have spent, I think, whole hours looking at. The brown dog has given up all pretense and sleeps the entire evening across my boots now, a dead, warm weight, twitching through his dreams, and I have learned to write and to doze, and to drink my ale with a dog on my feet, and would not have it any other way. Edwin sits near the lamp with the great grey thing she has been knitting since the autumn, which has grown and is plainly now a blanket, a wide, soft, grey blanket, and she knits at it through these long nights with a small private smile, and still will not say who it is for, and I have stopped asking, because I have begun to have a suspicion about it that I am keeping even from you until I am surer. Hartle is in his high chair by the fire, mostly asleep, waking now and then to say a thing and then sleeping again. Reed across from me, easy now in my company as I am in his. Mrs. Pell in and out, and sometimes late, sitting down at last with her own cup, which is the sign that the day is truly over and the night has the room. And one night, I do not know which night, they have run together into one long golden snowbound night in my memory, and I am content to let them. One night, late, when the fire had burned down to its red heart, and half the room was asleep, and the snow was still turning past the black window, someone began, very softly, to sing. I could not tell you who began it. A woman's voice, low, no words I knew, an old slow tune that went up and came down, and went up again like something rocking. And one by one, a few other voices came in under it. Not many, not loud, just a few of the waking ones joining the thread of it in the warm dark. And Hartle's old cracked voice was one of them. I heard it, coming in low on the turns. They did not sing it for an audience. They did not sing it the way people sing to perform. They sang it the way a person hums while their hands are busy, half to themselves, a thing the body does when it is content and the night is long. And I sat there with the dog on my feet, and the fire low, and the snow falling, and these few soft old voices going up and down in the gold. And I thought, Margaret, that if I died there, in that chair, in that warmth, in the middle of that quiet old song, with the snow keeping its watch outside, I would have very little to complain of, and a great deal to be grateful for, and that the man who came north, thin and grey and sleepless not so many months ago, could not possibly have imagined that such an evening was waiting for him at the end of the road that took longer than it should. I did not sing. I do not know the tune, and my voice is not one to inflict on a quiet room. But I listened to the end of it, and I have it in me still. And I find myself humming the shape of it now, over this letter, the parts of it my ear caught. And I cannot give it to you on paper, which is the great helplessness of letters, that I cannot send you a tune. But I wanted you at least to know that it happened, that there was a song in the snow quiet, and that your brother was warm and safe and held in the middle of it. Your letter came in the middle of all this, came through the snow, which I cannot account for any more than I can account for the speed of the post in the fog, the carrier getting through to us when by rights nothing should be getting in or out of a valley snowed as deep as this one. But I have given up accounting for the post, and so should you. It was a short one this time, and I want you to know I did not mind its being short, not for a moment. A short, warm letter from you is worth more to me than a long, dutiful one from anybody else alive. And this was a warm one, warm all the way through, and I read it twice by the fire with the dog on my feet, and was happy. You dated it the 4th of December, which is, by the calendar I am no longer keeping, but the services kitchen still does, some weeks ahead of me again. And I have decided, as I told you at the top, to be only fond about that now rather than frightened. You are keeping your time, and I am keeping mine, or not keeping mine. And the letters cross between the two the way they have always crossed, And that is simply how it is between us now. And I would rather have your warm 4th of December than no letter at all. You wrote me the boys. The map maker has put snow on his country that we don't live in. Drew it in over the whole of his great pinned map, you said. A whitewash over the invented coastlines and the roads he adds each evening. And announced that it's winter there now too. And I sat with that a while. The boy laying his own snow over his nowhere country. In the same weeks the real snow came down over the place his uncle actually lives. And I have stopped being unsettled by the way that child's hand finds the truth of this valley from 100 miles off, and have started being comforted by it instead. As though some thread runs from him to here. As though he is keeping a small map of where I am, without either of us telling him to. The younger has been ill, you said. A small winter cold, nothing to fear. But you sat up with him a night, and he asked you, and you wrote me this, and I have read it a great many times. He asked you, in the fever-honest way of a small sick child in the dark, whether Uncle Edwin was warm enough, wherever he was. And you told him yes. And you were right to tell him yes, Margaret, because I am warm enough. I am warmer than I have ever been, and I want you to carry that answer back to him as a true one, and not a kind one. Tell the boy his uncle is warm. Tell him his uncle is, in fact, snowed in a village under a snow that will not melt, by a fire that does not go out, with a dog on his feet and a song in his ears, and that he is warm, and that he thought of his nephew the moment he read the question, and was undone by it a little, in the good way, the snow-coloured way. I went up to my room after I read your letter. The cold up there is sharp now, away from the fire. My breath a visible thing again the moment I leave the gold of the public room. And I lit my lamp, and I looked, as I look every night before I sleep, at the cutting in its pot in the window. And I want to tell you what it is doing, because it is part of all this, part of the snow and the keeping and the long route that runs between your wall and my window. It is green, Margaret. It is green and it is thriving, and it has put out 2 new leaves since I planted it. And it is doing all of this in a cold north window, with the snow banked up against the outside of the glass, not 4 inches from it. In a room where my own breath freezes, in the dead of a winter that has every other green thing in this valley locked under 3 feet of white. It does not care about the cold. Of course it does not. It came from the one place in all this country where the cold never comes, that warm, walled, always June garden behind the wall that is not there anymore. And it has brought a little of that garden's weather inside itself, the way Mrs. Yarrow said it would, the way she said the root remembers. It sits in my freezing window in its pot of kitchen earth, green as June, with the kept snow white behind it, and it is the strangest and most hopeful thing I own. And I sit with it a while every night and think of you sitting with its other half by your wall in the milder south, the 2 of us tending one impossible green root at the 2 far ends of the cold. And I find I can almost feel the warmth of your evening through it, as though the root carried that too. The snow has been giving me back our childhood, Margaret. That is the other thing it has done, and I did not expect it. And I have been half living in it these snowed-in days. I had forgotten, until this snow came down and undid me at the window, how much of the best of when we were small was winter. We were not, either of us, summer children, were we? Summer was the long, hot duty of the garden and the chores and the flies, and we bore it. But winter was ours. I've been remembering the year of the great snow, the one that closed the school and the lane both, when we must have been, you would know, you always know, 8 and 10 perhaps, and we were let out into a world gone white exactly like this one, and given the whole of it to ourselves because the grown people had given up on the day. I remember you organising me. You were always the one with the plan. I was the labour. I remember a fort, a great architectural snow fort against the wall by the kitchen garden, which you designed and I built under your direction, and which we defended against no one, because there was no one to defend it against, but which we defended anyway, the whole grey afternoon, against the imagined armies of the lane, until our hands were past feeling and our stockings were soaked through, and Mother called us in at the blue end of the day. And I remember, this is the one that has been with me most, these nights by the fire. I remember coming in from that, the particular glory of coming in from the deep cold into the kitchen, the heat of it like a wall you walked into, the steam coming off our wet wool, the chilblains starting their hot itch as the feeling came back, and Mother making us strip off the soaked things by the range, and the milk she heated, and the way the window over the sink had gone blind with steam on the inside and dark with the early winter night on the outside, and how safe it was, how completely and perfectly safe, the cold, enormous white world shut out on the far side of the glass, and the two of us thawing by the fire inside it, alive with the cold still in us and the warm coming back. I think that is the safest I have ever been, those winter evenings of our childhood, and I think I have worked this out only here, only in this snow. I think it is the safety I have been looking for my whole life since, and not finding, in counting houses and lodgings and the long, grey, efficient years, and have found again at last, of all the unlikely places, in a snowed-in inn at the wrong end of the country, 100 miles from you. The gold room with the black and white window is Mother's kitchen. The dog on my feet is the dog we were never allowed. The song in the dark is the something that was always almost there in those childhood evenings and that I have spent 30 years not quite hearing. The snow gave it all back to me. That is what the first snow does, I think, to anyone who will stand still in it. It takes you back to the first one, and the first one always has your whole childhood folded up inside it. And I have thought of your bench, of course. I cannot have a memory of you and a garden without coming to the bench. I have been seeing it under this snow. Your bench, the real one, the one in your real garden, in the milder south where it is the 4th of December and snow may or may not have come. Seeing it the way it must look now or soon, the cornflowers long gone to black stalk and cut down, the borders bare and waiting, and the bench itself with a smooth white cushion of snow along it, untouched, no one sitting there. The empty half kept for me, gone as white as the rest. And I want to say something to you about that image that I have only just understood sitting here. It does not make me sad the way it would once have done. A snow-covered empty bench used to be, in my mind, the very picture of my absence, of the place I was not, of the grief of the distance. But I have come to see it differently from inside this kept and patient northern snow. The snow on your bench is not absence. The snow is the same snow. It is one winter, Margaret, laid over both of us, your bare borders and my white square, your bench and my window, one cold and one quiet stretched across all the miles between, and under it, at both ends, the one green root holding. We are not in 2 winters, we are in 1 winter, far apart in it, which is a different and a warmer thing, and I mean to keep thinking of it that way, and I wanted to give it to you to keep too. Let me take you out into it, the way I took you down the long lane last time. Let me give you a walk, slowly, because the snow has made all my walks slow now, and there is no better thing to do with a letter than to go slowly through a beautiful thing together. I went out yesterday, or some day, into the white, wrapped to the eyes, and I went down toward the river the way I always go, down the dipping lane between the cottages. And I must tell you first what the snow has done to the sound of the world. because that was the thing that stopped me before I had gone 10 steps. It has taken the sound away. Not all of it. Your own breath is suddenly loud, and the creak and squeak of your own boots packing the snow is loud. And somewhere a single bird said one cold thing and was quiet. But the world's sound, the background hum that you never hear until it is gone, the snow has simply eaten. I stood in the lane in a silence so deep and so soft that it had a kind of pressure to it, a silence you could feel on your ears like a held breath. The whole valley wrapped in white wool and saying nothing. And I understood why they call it a hush, why that soft word is the only one that fits. The snow does not make the world quiet. It hushes it, the way you hush a child, with tenderness, with a finger to the lips, shh, and the whole valley obeying. And the lane, I will tell you because I know you will want to know and because it is a small mercy I have been grateful for. The lane behaves itself under the snow. Or rather, I cannot tell whether it does or not, and that is the mercy. When every step is the same slow, high-need labour through the deep, when getting to the bridge is a matter of effort and not of time, the lane cannot play its trick on me. Or if it plays it, I cannot feel it, because I have stopped measuring the walk in minutes and started measuring it in breaths and footfalls. And by that measure, every walk is simply as long as it is. The snow has done to the lane what it has done to the days, made the length of it beside the point. I trudged down through the hush, past the cottages with their snow-rounded roofs and their one gold window each, smoke going straight up from the chimneys into the windless white. And I came at last to the bridge, the old stone bridge, humped and patient, wearing a thick, smooth blanket of snow along its parapet. And below it, the river, the one black thing in all that white, running dark and cold and quick under the snow-laden banks, the only thing in the valley still hurrying, still keeping the world's old time. And I stood on the bridge a long while and watched the black water go by under the white, and thought about how it was the one creature here that had not agreed to stay.
And coming back up, Margaret, here is your noticing, and it is the best one I have found you yet, I think, and I have been saving it. Coming back up the lane, I heard, through the hush, the small, high sound of children, and I came up into the edge of the green and found them at their grave work, 6 or 7 of the village children, and they had built a village. A whole village, Margaret, in the snow, on the green, a little Hollowmere, knee-high, made of heaped and patted snow, a row of small snow cottages with twig doors, a little humped snow bridge over a scratched-out river, a snow square, even a little snow inn that the biggest girl told me solemnly was the Hare and Lantern when I asked. They had built their whole world over again in white, the way children do, and I crouched there in the cold, admiring it with the proper seriousness it deserved. And then I saw the church. They had made the church. A little snow tower with a cross of twigs, and they had not put it in the middle, Margaret. They had put it off at the edge of their snow village, away on its own at the side. And when I asked the biggest girl why the church was all the way over there and not in the middle with everything else, she looked at me as though I had asked why the sky was up, and she said, "So you can hear it but not see it." So you can hear it but not see it. The very words, Margaret, the very words your son said over his clothes-peg town 100 miles from here. The church goes at the edge, where you can hear it but not see it. Said back to me, by a snow-handed child in a northern green who has never been within 100 miles of your kitchen floor. I knelt there in the snow and could not speak for a moment. I do not know what it means. I have given up needing to know what these things mean. I only know that there is a truth about where the church goes, that your boy knows, and these children know, and that runs, somehow, under all the distance between them, the same way the route runs, the same way the one winter runs, and that I knelt in the snow at the edge of a child's white village and felt, very strongly and not unhappily, that I was kneeling inside something far larger and older and more joined up than I will ever understand, and that it was, whatever it was, kind.
Let me tell you the shape of a day now, because the snow has simplified my days down to something I think you would hardly recognize as belonging to your brother, the man who used to keep his hours like a miser keeps coin. I wake late. There is no other kind of waking now. The snow light is gentle and gives no command to rise, and the room is cold above the blankets so that waking is a slow negotiation rather than a leap. I lie a while. I have learned to lie a while. It is one of the harder things I have learned here and one of the better. Then down to the gold and the fire and Mrs. Pell's bread and the first warmth of the day going into me like a benediction. And then, this is the part that would have appalled the old me. Then, mostly, very little. There is not much a man can do in a village snowed to its knees and content to stay so. I carry wood. I have made myself useful at the woodpile, which is honest work and warms you twice, as the saying goes, and I have got better at it, my town hands gone harder than they were. I help Mrs. Pell with the heavy things. I sit with Hartle, who likes company though he wants no conversation, and we watch the fire together for long stretches and are easy. I tend my green cutting. I walk when the want takes me out into the hush. I write to you. And that, Margaret, that is very nearly the whole of it. The whole of a day. And there was a time not a year ago when a day with so little got done in it would have filled me with a clawing, restless guilt, the sense of hours leaking away unredeemed. And now it fills me with nothing but a low, steady contentment, a sense of the day being not wasted but spent well, on warmth and small kindnesses and the watching of beautiful things. The bakehouse runs through all of it, the warm heart of the snowed-in village. Mr. Oates at his fire in the white mornings, and the fruited loaf daily now, and other things besides, because the sitting-up nights want feeding, and a village laid up in snow turns its mind to sweetness and comfort the way a squirrel turns to its store. I have watched him work, on the cold mornings, the gold of his open oven the warmest colour in the whole white world, and I have carried loaves back to the inn through the snow, with the heat of them coming through the cloth into my chest. And I will tell you that there are worse uses for a life, far worse, more celebrated ones, than to carry warm bread through snow to a house full of people you have come to love. I did not know, when I came here, that I had been starving for exactly this. Not for rest, I would have told you I wanted rest, but for usefulness of a small, warm, immediate kind. For work you can see the point of with your own eyes and feel the warmth of against your own chest, instead of the great abstract paperwork of my old life, the columns and the ledgers and the moving of other men's money from one nothing to another. I carry wood and bread now. I can see what I have done at the end of a day. A stacked pile, a fed fire, a warm room. It is not much. It is everything. I have written that sentence and looked at it and decided to leave it because it is true and because you, of all people, you who fed and warmed and tended your whole life while I went off to be important in grey rooms,
You will understand it better than anyone alive.
I am aware. I want you to know I am still aware that I have not gone entirely soft and unwatchful. I am aware that there is a way of telling everything I have just told you that would be a warning rather than a comfort. A man who has stopped keeping his hours, stopped getting much done, stopped wanting to leave, sunk gratefully into the warm, slow round of a place that keeps its own time and lets its snow stay. I know how that reads from the outside. I wrote you last time my fear of exactly this, the fear that the happiness here is the softest of the ropes. I have not forgotten that fear, and I will not pretend the snow has dissolved it. If anything, the snow is the very thing I feared, the kindest possible version of the staying, the trap that is no trap because it is only warmth and quiet and bread. But I have come to a kind of peace with it that I want to try to give you, and it is this. I would rather be honestly, dangerously happy and know it, and tell you, and let you hold the other end of the thread, than be miserable and safe. As long as I am still writing it all down for you, as long as there is a you to write to, and a date at the top, however wrong, and the green root in the window that came from away and remembers, I am a man who knows where he is and how he came to be so warm. The danger is not the warmth. The danger would be forgetting to tell you about it, and I will not forget. I have just told you all of it, so the rope, if it is a rope, has you on the other end of it, and that, I have decided, is enough to make it a tether and not a snare. I have made a friend of the bakehouse this winter, or not quite a friend. You do not quite make friends of these people the way you do at home, but something quieter and possibly deeper, an understanding. I have taken to going down there in the dark before the village is up. On the mornings I wake too early into the snowlight and cannot lie still, because the bakehouse is the one place awake at that hour, and because Mr. Oates, I have found, does not mind a silent companion by his fire. The first morning I came, he looked up from his trough, this great, flowery, silent man, and did not ask what I wanted or why I was abroad in the dark, only looked at me a moment with his small, kind eyes in his big, slow face, and then jerked his head at the stool by the wall, which meant sit, and I sat, and that was the whole of the negotiation. And I have been welcome there ever since on those terms, that I sit on the stool and say nothing and let him work. And it is the best theatre in the world, Margaret. The slow, dark theatre of a man making bread before dawn. There is no light but the oven and one lamp. And the oven is the great thing, the red gold mouth of it open and breathing heat across the whole low room, and the cold pressing blue at the small window, and the snow glowing faintly outside, and Mr. Oates moving between the cold and the heat in his shirt sleeves, with the flour worked so deep into his big hands and forearms that they look dusted with the snow he never goes out into. He works the dough the way water works a stone, slowly, with his whole weight, no haste in it anywhere, folding and turning and pressing, and the smell comes up. The raw, yeasty smell of the working dough first, and then, as the early batch goes in, the other smell, the one that has no equal, the smell of baking bread filling the warm dark while the world outside lies frozen and asleep. I have sat on that stool through whole dark hours of it, warm to the bone from the oven, watching a silent giant turn cold flour and water into the warm gold heart of the village's day. And I have thought that there are cathedrals doing less holy work than that low stone room before dawn. He spoke to me, the third or fourth morning. Mr. Oates, who I had half decided did not speak at all.
He was sliding the long peel into the oven, his face gone red gold in the light of it, and without turning he said, "You sleep bad." Not a question. I said I slept well enough, better than I had in years, only that some mornings the light woke me early. And he was quiet a while, working, and then he said, "Aye, the snow light. It wakes the new ones." The new ones. And he straightened up and looked at me, the firelight on him, and said the longest thing I have ever heard him say, which I will give you whole because I have carried it ever since. "First winter's the hard one, for them as come from away. The light's strange and the quiet's strange, and a body don't know yet how to be still. You'll learn it. Everyone learns it. Come down here in the dark till you do. There's worse places to not sleep than by a bread oven." And then he went back to his loaves and said nothing else. And I sat on my stool with my eyes stinging, because it was, in its flat, flowery way, one of the kindest things anyone has said to me in my life. An old baker telling a sleepless stranger that he understood the particular ache of a first winter from away, and that the cure was simply this, simply company and warmth and time and the smell of bread in the dark, and that I should come and have it as often as I needed, no thanks wanted, no questions asked. They do not say I care for you here. They say, come down here in the dark till you learn it. It is the same thing. I have learned to hear it as the same thing. I carried the loaves back up that morning, as I have most mornings since, the warm weight of them against my chest through the glowing snow, my own old tracks beside me in the white, and the first windows beginning to wake gold one by one as the village stirred to the smell I was carrying. And I thought, this is a life. This small, warm, circular thing, the dark, the oven, the silent man, the bread carried up through the snow to wake the houses. This is a life, a whole one, lacking nothing essential. And I fell into it sideways by accident at the wrong end of the country, and it has turned out to be the one I was always meant for, and never once thought to want. I told you I had a suspicion I was keeping even from you, about Anwen's knitting, the great grey blanket she has been making since the autumn, that has grown all these weeks under her needles by the lamp, and that she would never say the purpose of. I am surer now, and I will tell you, because it has turned out to be the tenderest thing, and because I have never kept a true thing from you for long, and do not mean to start. You will remember I told you, more than once, about the grey blanket that arrives over me on the sitting-up nights, that I doze by the fire and wake in the low red dark to find a blanket laid over me that I did not put there and never see arrive. I have written you that small mystery several times, fondly, as one of the kindnesses of the place. Well, I have worked it out. The blanket that arrives over me is Anwen's blanket. It is the same grey, the same soft weight. I have had it over me a dozen times and never once, fool that I am, made the connection between the warmth that finds me in my sleep and the grey wool growing under her hands not 6 feet away. And the night before last I dozed off in my chair as I do, and I half woke, not all the way, just up to the surface of sleep and no further, to the small sounds of her settling it over me, tucking it, the particular careful way a person does a thing they do not want you to wake for. And I kept my eyes shut and did not let on, because I understood all at once, in the warm dark, that I was not meant to know, that the not saying was the whole shape of the gift, and that to open my eyes and thank her would be to spoil something. So I lay still and let her think me asleep, and felt the blanket come down over me, the blanket she has been making since before the first frost,
since before I had any idea I had a place in this village at all. And Margaret, I understood that she has been knitting it all autumn for me. That it was always for me. That when she would not say who it was for all those weeks, the answer she was keeping was the man from away, the one who came thin and grey and sleepless, and did not yet know he was being woven in. I do not know what to do with that, except to tell you, and to let it be one more of the things here that I cannot decide is the most comforting or the most frightening, and have decided is both, and have decided to let be both. Because you see it too. I know you do. You saw it before I finished the sentence. This is how it goes here. This is the very mechanism of the place. The soft, slow weaving in of the ones who come from away. Mrs. Yarrow told me the long route takes hold without the away part knowing. Hartle told me of the man from Wenley who took a room and a trade and a wife, and forgot he had ever come from anywhere. And here is the small domestic engine of it, made visible at last in grey wool. A woman by a lamp, knitting a stranger a blanket all the slow autumn long, against the cold she knows is coming for him, so that when the deep of winter arrives, he will be warm and held and covered, and a little more theirs than he was. They are knitting me into the winter, Margaret, literally, with needles. And the frightened clerk in me, the one who keeps the count, says run, says this is exactly the warm, soft binding you were warned of. The blanket is the rope. And the rest of me, the larger part now, I will not lie to you, the rest of me lay still in the warm dark under Anwen's blanket, and was more moved than I have been by anything in years. Because no one has made me anything with their hands since mother. Because to be quietly and unaskingly cared for by people who want nothing from you is the rarest thing in the world. And because, frightened clerk or no, a man who has been cold a long time does not, in the end, refuse a blanket. I did not refuse it. I lay under it and let the tears come again, the snow-coloured kind. And in the morning it was folded over the back of my chair as though it had never been, and Anwen said nothing, and neither did I. And that is where it stands between us, in the kind silence that is the local way of saying the largest things. I want to give you one more thing before I close, because it is the most beautiful of all, and I have been holding it for last. I have told you about the snow by day, the white glory of it, and the snow by the fire, the gold warmth of it. But I had not, until 2 nights ago, seen the snow by night, properly, out in it, and it is a different thing again, and I think it may be the most beautiful thing I have ever seen, and I want to try to give it to you, even knowing I will fail. I could not sleep, not from any trouble, only from too much contentment, which is a thing that can keep a man awake as surely as worry can. And rather than lie there, I wrapped myself in everything I own, including, I will confess, the grey blanket, which I took up from the chair on my way through the dark public room past the banked fire, and I let myself out the inn door into the night. And Margaret. The snow at night is lit from within. I do not know how else to say it. There was a moon, a high, cold 3/4 moon in a sky scrubbed clean and black and crowded with more stars than I have seen since I was a boy. The town robs you of the stars. You forget they are even there. And the moonlight came down on all that kept white snow, and the snow took it and gave it back, so that the whole valley was glowing softly, blue-white, lit from the ground up, every smooth field and rounded roof faintly shining with its own borrowed cold light, brighter than any moonlit night I have known, because the snow doubled the moon, threw it back up, filled all the low places with a soft blue radiance, so that there were almost no true shadows, only gradations of glowing white and blue, and here and there, the deep blue-black of a doorway or the under-eave. I stood in the middle of the square in the glowing snow under the enormous wheel of stars, and I turned slowly all the way round, looking, and there was not a sound, not the smallest sound. The snow had eaten even the little night sounds, and the cold held everything perfectly still. And not a light, not one lit window anywhere, the whole village asleep under its white, except for the faint red ghost of a banked chimney here and there, breathing a straight thread of paler grey smoke up into the black. I have never in my life been anywhere so silent or so beautiful or so entirely at peace. I thought of the word unearthly, and then I thought, no, that is exactly wrong. It was the most earthly thing imaginable. The plain old earth doing one of its plain old miracles. Snow and moonlight and stars and cold. Nothing in it that has not been happening since before there were people to stand in squares and weep at it. It was not unearthly. It was the earth, being beautiful with no one watching, the way it mostly is, the way we mostly miss.
And I stood there in it a long time, too long, until the cold got down into me past the blanket, and I knew I would pay for it. And just before I went in, I looked up at the church tower, the squat, dark tower with the silent bell, black against the blazing stars. And I had the strangest, calmest thought, which I will give you exactly as it came, that the bell does not ring because it does not need to, here, any more than the date needs keeping, or the snow needs clearing, or the lane needs measuring. That the bell is silent for the same reason the whole village is silent under the snow, which is that there is nowhere anyone needs to be called to, no hour anyone needs marking, nothing to announce, only the long-kept quiet, and the people warm inside it, and the stars going round over all of it, keeping the only time that is left, the slow old turning time of the sky, which asks nothing of anyone. And then I was too cold to think anything more profound than that I wanted my bed, and I went in, past the banked fire, up to the cold room, and lay down under Anwen's blanket with the stars still printed on the back of my eyes, and slept, and did not dream, or do not remember dreaming, which here comes to the same kind, contented thing. I tell you all this partly because it was beautiful, and beauty wants sharing, or it sits heavy, and partly for a reason I have only just understood as I wrote it down, that I want you, on some cold, clear night this winter in your milder south, to go out into your own garden, past the snow-cushioned bench, and stand a moment and look up at the same stars. They are the same stars, Margaret. That is the one thing the distance cannot touch, the one ceiling we still share, and know that at the same hour, or near enough, by whatever clock, your brother is very likely standing in a glowing northern square, doing exactly the same thing, looking up at the same wheel of light, thinking of you. We cannot share the snow, and we cannot share the fire, and the letters take their strange long time. But the stars are the stars. Let us share those. Let that be a thing we do this winter. Look up on the clear nights and meet there. It is late now, by no clock, and the fire has burned down, and I have come up to write the last of this to you by my own lamp with the green cutting at my elbow, and the kept snow blue-white in the window. And I find I want to gather it all up for you before I sleep, the way you gather a child's scattered things at the end of a long day, and set it in order, and put it away safe. Here is what the first snow taught me, Margaret. And it taught it gently, which is the only way I can learn anything now. It taught me that there is a difference between the staying that is a surrender and the staying that is a rest, and that I have, somewhere in these white days, crossed from fearing the one
to accepting the other. I am not fighting this place anymore. I stopped, I think, at the window on the first morning, with the snow coming down and my defenses gone. I stopped fighting the warmth, the slowness, the being kept, the whole soft conspiracy of the village to fold me in. And I have spent the days since waiting to feel the regret of that surrender, the cold finger of it. And it has not come, and I have stopped waiting for it. What has come instead is this snow-colored peace, this sense of being exactly where I am, in the one winter that is also your winter, under the blanket they made me, beside the root that remembers, with the date at the top of the page kept for love and not for use. I am not lost, though I have lost the count. I am not trapped, though I am snowed in, and would not leave today if the road were clear. I am held. There is a difference, and you are the difference. You, on the other end of every word of this, the reason the warmth is a tether and not a snare. The bench kept under your snow as mine is kept under theirs. And the road home. You will want me to come to the road. I always come to the road. The road is under 3 feet of kept snow now, and no one is clearing it. And a stranger looking at this valley would say that man is going nowhere. That road is closed. He is in for the winter and longer. But I have stood on the bridge and watched the one black river that would not stay, that goes on under all the white, keeping the world's old time, hurrying south. South, Margaret, toward you. The way water does, the way everything in me does under all the snow of my contentment. And I have decided that the river is the truest thing in me, the part that has not agreed to stay however warm the rest of me has got, the part that is still and always going home by the long way, under the ice if it must, dark and quick and southward, toward a bench in a milder country, with a green root by its wall, and my sister on it keeping the empty half. The snow has not closed my road, it has only covered it, the way it has covered everything, softly, for a while, until the village has had its want of the quiet. The road is still there under the white, it still reaches the bridge, and the river still runs to you. So do not, when you read this, picture me trapped in the snow. Picture me warm in it, warm and held and woken each morning into that gentle, sourceless light, carrying bread and wood, tending the green thing in the window, dozing under a blanket made for me by a woman who would not say it was, and going home all the while underneath it all like the black river under the ice, slowly, by the long way, toward you. Both things are true at once. They are always both here. I have stopped needing them to be one. Give my love to the boys. To the map maker, tell him his uncle says the snow he laid over his country that we don't live in came down true, that it is winter there too, exactly as he said, and that an uncle 100 miles north is keeping his own corner of the same winter and is glad the boy thought to send snow. And tell him, from me, that he has the church in the right place. He'll know what I mean. He doesn't need to know how I know. To the younger, the one who was poorly and asked in the dark whether his uncle was warm, tell him yes. Tell him again. Tell him his uncle is the warmest he has ever been, snowed in by a fire with a dog on his feet, and that being asked after by a small, brave, sick boy was the best medicine to reach this valley all winter, and that he is to get well and charge his admission and rule his cat, and know that he is loved 100 miles off. And keep the most of it for yourself, as always. The part I am still no good at saying and am getting, I think, a very little better at, here in the snow that has loosened my tongue along with everything else. Look up on the clear nights. I will be looking too. That is the new thing, the thing I want us to keep this winter, better than any wrong date. The stars, at the same hour, north and south, the one shared ceiling. Meet me there when the sky is clear. I will be the one in the glowing square with a borrowed blanket and his breath going up to you. Your brother, snowed in and warm, woven into the winter by a grey blanket and a green root that came from away and remembers, going home all the while underneath it like the black river under the ice, by the long way, by no clock, under the same stars. Edwin. Postscript. A small thing, the last one, noticed on my way up to bed. Because the snow does not melt and no new snow has fallen since the first, it only stays, kept exactly as it came down. It has kept as well every footprint anyone has made in it since the morning it fell. The whole village wears its record now, written in the white. Every track to the bakehouse and the well and the woodpile, every child's wandering, every path worn between door and door by the small journeys of the snowed-in days, none of it melted, none of it covered, all of it simply held, the way this place holds everything. I stood at the window and read it like a ledger. I'm still enough of a clerk for that. The whole quiet history of the week laid out in tracks across the glowing snow. And I found my own. My first morning's footprints from the day the snow came, when I went out wandering into the square. Still there, Margaret, still exactly where I left them, days old and perfect, the marks of a man stepping out into something more beautiful than he was ready for. I do not think, at home, I have left a single mark that lasted. Here the snow keeps even my footprints. I cannot decide whether that is the loneliest thing or the most consoling, that a place should hold so faithfully to the record of my small comings and goings. And so, you will not be surprised to hear, I have decided it is both, and let it be both, and gone up to bed under my kept blanket in my kept snow, held and warm and yours.